The story begins at the 2007 Junior World Championship, where we see our protagonist, Lee Gun, who is just 13 years old, playing the final match of his tennis tournament. Lee Gun is overjoyed because he is very close to winning the final. His younger brother, Lee Shin, is also there. Lee Shin has come to help his brother Lee Gun after the match. Lee Gun needed just a few points to win, and in the end, he secured the last point and won the match. However, at the very last shot, Lee Gun's opponent loses grip on his tennis racket, and it almost hits Lee Shin. Seeing this, Lee Gun rushes towards Lee Shin to protect him. But in doing so, Lee Gun injures his hand badly. While recalling this worst memory of his childhood, Lee Gun thinks to himself that he wishes he hadn't taken that step that day. If he hadn't gone to save Lee Shin, his life wouldn't have turned out this way. This is the biggest regret of Lee Gun's life, and he constantly replays it in his mind. No matter how hard he tries, he cannot forget that day. Lee Gun repeatedly tells himself that no matter what, he cannot change his past memories. As he thinks about this, he looks at his wine glass, which is now empty. At present, Lee Gun is sitting on a plane with his parents and his younger brother, Lee Shin. Lee Gun gets up to refill his glass of wine. Sitting nearby is a girl named Kyung-ju Nam, who becomes a little uneasy upon noticing Lee Gun. However, when she sees him talking to the air hostess, asking her to refill his glass, Kang Ji-shu can tell from his tone that this guy is definitely going through some kind of mental crisis. Noticing a school reunion invitation card in Lee Gun's hand, the air hostess asks him whether he'll attend the school reunion. Slightly intoxicated, Lee Gun starts saying that he doesn't know if he will, although he wants to go to the reunion to meet his first love. But he believes she would never like someone like him. Watching this strange guy, Kyung-ju thinks to herself, well, obviously, who would like such a weird guy? Kyung-ju starts drinking her wine while thinking about his first love, and Lee Gun begins to stare at her intently. Kyung-ju tells him there's no point in hitting on her because she already has a boyfriend. But Lee Gun calmly replies that there is wine on her face, and that's what he is looking at. Handing her a tissue, he clarifies that he has no interest in her. Embarrassed, Kyung-ju wipes her face, but just then, turbulence shakes the plane, causing Lee Gun's thumb to accidentally hit Kyung-ju's mouth, breaking her front tooth. He apologizes profusely, and Lee Gun quickly offers to compensate her. Kyung-ju, however, dismisses it with a smile, casually mentioning that those were just fake teeth anyway. Before they can say much more, the turbulence worsens, and Lee Gun ends up falling to the floor. Kyung-ju instinctively saves her laptop first, as it's the most important thing to her. She then tries to help Lee Gun up, but Lee Gun sees a glimpse of a little girl in her for a brief moment. Suddenly, sharp pain shoots through his hand, and he tells her to stay away. Startled, Kyung-ju hands him her business card and says that if he ever needs help, he can call her. Holding his injured hand, Lee Gun drifts into a memory of his childhood. After the incident, he had been resting at his grandmother's house. He wakes up to hear his parents talking to his grandmother. They explain that they spent a lot of money to send Lee Gun to train under a coach in Australia, but now they will take Lee Shin instead, as Lee Gun's injury has made him unfit. Lee Gun's father asks his grandmother to keep Lee Gun with her for a few years, because seeing Lee Shin practice would only make him feel worse. Hearing this, his grandmother feels terrible about leaving Lee Gun behind. Meanwhile, Lee Gun, wearing his medal and his clothes, chases after his parents' car, begging them to take him along. But his parents don't stop the car and leave him behind. Lee Gun trips and falls on the road, and his medal slips into the water. Holding onto his world champion medal, Lee Gun also falls into the water. When he opens his eyes, he finds that a girl has saved him. Snapping back to reality, Lee Gun gets up as the plane lands in Korea. His father forces him to wear Lee Shin's clothes and a mask to step outside. Outside the airport, a crowd of reporters and fans eagerly waits. A boy even puts a garland around him, mistaking him for Lee Shin. Meanwhile, Lee Shin is quietly escorted out the side by their parents. The reality is clear that Lee Gun is no longer the star, as Lee Shin has now become the world tennis champion. A reporter soon discovers that Lee Shin is heading toward his vanity van, and the entire crowd rushes after him to ask questions. Amid the chaos, Lee Gun collides with Kyung-ju again as they both try to gather their belongings. Lee Gun apologized to her. The boy who gave Lee Gun the garland asks for it back, as it was meant for Lee Shin. Lee Gun hands it over and goes to put his things in the vanity van. However, before he can get inside, the car drives off, leaving him behind. Lee Gun's parents, sitting with Lee Shin, ask him why he is still afraid of facing the cameras despite being a tennis star. Meanwhile, Lee Gun is left standing alone, yet again sidelined. Lee Shin ignores everyone, and their mother starts scolding Lee Gun, saying that he can't even handle the smallest of tasks and is completely useless. Lee Gun's father interrupts her, telling her not to say such things. That's when they realize Lee Gun isn't even in the van. They message him, instructing him to use Lee Shin's card to take a taxi back home. With no other option, Lee Gun, feeling utterly dejected, waits for a taxi. Meanwhile, Kyung-ju notices him, but Lee Gun quickly covers his face so she won't recognize him. Kyung-ju, a mental health specialist, later gives a presentation where she explains how trauma works. She shares an example of a mouse that experienced electric shocks. No matter how delicious the food offered, the mouse always suffered from indigestion due to the psychological effects of the shocks. She connects this to humans, explaining that physical trauma or even harsh words spoken by parents in childhood can leave such a deep imprint on someone's memory that it leads to depression. No matter how much one tries, such bad memories linger like scars. She proposes that if there were a way to erase such painful memories, like a bad memory eraser, it could help people heal. Back to Lee Gun as he finally reaches home and silently heads to his room without saying a word to anyone. Soon after, his mother comes into his room to take kimchi from the refrigerator placed there. Seeing this, Lee Gun asks his mother why they have kept the refrigerator in his room. His mother coldly replies, treating him like a stranger, and she said the refrigerator was always there and that this room is actually a storage space. She adds that it's Lee Gun who ruined their storeroom by staying there. Later, when Lee Gun comes out for lunch, his father scolds him, asking why he always wears black clothes. Lee Gun quietly apologizes. Annoyed, his mother snaps at him, asking if that's all he knows is just apologizing for everything. Feeling helpless, Lee Gun apologizes again. At this point, his parents ignore him completely and shift their focus to his brother, Lee Shin. Lee Gun's mother prepares Lee Shin's favorite meal and begins feeding him with her own hands, completely ignoring Lee Gun's preferences, and there is not even a single dish that she made for him. Watching this, Lee Gun looks at his younger brother and then at their family dog. He thought to himself that in this house, his worth is not even that of a dog. He tries to play with the dog, but the dog bites him instead. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the team of doctors is thrilled with Kyung-ju's presentation and encourages her to deliver the same presentation in front of the board of directors. Kyung confidently assures them that nothing will go wrong. That's when Dr. Tae-yi comes to Kyung-ju, whom Kyung-ju likes a lot. As soon as Kyung-ju smiles in front of him, her front tooth comes out. Seeing this, all the doctors are very shocked. Kyung-ju then goes to the dentist to fix her tooth. She starts thinking about the guy she met on the plane. After work, the other doctors start making plans to relax and go to a movie. However, Kyung-ju interrupts them and tells everyone to get back to work and prepare for the presentation. Slightly intimidated, the doctors reluctantly comply. One of her senior doctors, Dr. Han, questions why Kyung-ju is always so strict and serious despite being a psychiatrist. He advises her to focus on enjoying life outside of work sometimes. She told him that she just wants to make her presentation the best. That's the reason she is working hard. Later, when the professor asks Kyung-ju for the important documents that she brought back from the UK, she opens her suitcase only to find it filled with nothing but men's clothes, all black in color. Panicking, she realizes that her bag must have been swapped at the airport when she collided with someone. Checking the luggage tag, she finds the name Lee Gun and his contact number. Kyung-ju immediately tries to call him, but the line keeps showing as busy. This is because Lee Gun is on a call with his school friend. Lee Gun asks why he is calling when he was at his work suddenly, and Gu-bong replies that he was bored teaching out with elementary school kids. Gu-bong mentions the upcoming school reunion and suggests that Lee Gun should go because he might meet his first love there. Lee Gun repeats what he always says, that someone like him could never be loved. Hearing this, Gu-bong reminds Lee Gun of how much he has changed since the accident. He used to be such a cheerful and confident person. Gu-bong urges him to rediscover his self-esteem and confidence because that's the only way he can move forward in his career and life. Lee Gun thinks about it but concludes that it's no longer possible for him. After all, a side character can never compete with the lead hero, and he cuts the call. Frustrated, he drives his car to the Big Picture Agency building, but the security guard refuses to let him park there. Feeling defeated by life, Lee Gun walks into the washroom and sees a picture of Lee Shin displayed as the rock star of Big Picture Agency. He starts to think that his life has become even more miserable because now he is stuck working as Lee Shin's manager in the same company. There, he begins ruining Lee Shin's pictures with a black marker. When he steps outside, he meets a girl named Sai Yan. She excitedly tells Lee Gun that she is his biggest fan and even learned tennis by watching his footage. Lee Gun clears up the misunderstanding, saying that she must be talking about Lee Shin, and that he isn't the person she thinks. However, Sai Yan insists that she is indeed talking about the 2007 World Tennis Champion, Lee Gun. Hearing this, he becomes very happy and feels delighted talking to her. Sai Yan then asks him to show her his medal, but Lee Gun becomes slightly sad and says he doesn't have the medal. He lost it somewhere, and this made Sai Yan a little sad. At that moment, the CEO of Big Picture Company, Hong Jun-man, arrives and looks at Lee Gun with disdain and takes Sai Yan away from there. In the middle of all this, Lee Shin also arrives and asks Lee Gun to bring him coffee. At the same time, Lee Gun receives a call from Kyung-ju, and neither of them realizes yet that they have already met on the plane. Kyungju tells him about the luggage exchange, and Lee Gun explains that he has already contacted the airport and will soon get his luggage back and hers too. Kyungju is now frustrated, starts yelling at him for ignoring her calls and messages. Lee Gun cuts her off, saying he doesn't have time for this. Kyungju becomes furious, thinking, who does he think he is? Acting like he's the only busy person in the world. When Lee Gun comes back with coffee and enters Hongjun's office, Hongjun throws a document at him, telling him to make a copy of it. Lee Gun takes the document and starts chatting with Se Yan again. Seeing this, Hongjun becomes furious for no reason and yells at him to leave the room. Hongjun starts insulting him again that he is leeching on his brother. Lee Shin witnesses everything but says nothing. Outside, other employees also begin criticizing Lee Gun. At that moment, Lee Gun collapses because of severe pain in his hands. Somehow he runs off, trying to reach the hospital as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Kyungju is continuously calling and leaving voice notes for Lee Gun because the documents are extremely important to her, and without them, her presentation isn't possible. In the hospital emergency ward, a nurse tells Kyungju that a patient has come in with severe pain in his hands. The nurse adds that the patient belongs to Dr. Han, who is not currently present, and they don't know how to treat him. Kyungju says she will take a look at the patient. The moment she sees him, she immediately recognizes him as the man she met on the plane. However, she still doesn't realize that he is the one with whom her luggage was exchanged. Kyungju begins questioning Lee Gun about his pain. Lee Gun kept insisting on getting painkillers, saying he needed them. However, Kyungju tells him that she has read his entire medical history, and there's nothing in his reports that indicates any injury in his hand severe enough to cause such pain. She explains that what he is experiencing is just phantom pain, something that has no physical cause and exists only in his mind. Lee Gun, irritated, yells at her, saying that since she is a psychiatrist, she knows nothing about this kind of pain and demands to see Dr. Han. Kyungju firmly tells him that based on his medical records, he does indeed need a psychiatrist, which Lee Gun refuses to accept. She insists as he continues, but he stubbornly refuses. Kyungju then tells a nurse to bring her a hammer, saying she will only give him medicine if there's a real problem. Saying this, she pinches his left hand hard, causing him significant pain, but his right hand pain vanishes completely. Kyungju explains to him that this is real pain, and it has cured the phantom pain in his right hand. Lee Gun, frustrated, asks her how he can truly be cured. He says that while this pain is gone, what about the pain in his life? Will that take another 15 years to heal, or will it only end after he dies? He adds that he would even sell his soul if it meant he could get rid of his bad memories. Saying this, he starts to leave. Kyungju stops him, telling him that his treatment is not yet complete and that he can't leave, showing her his hand in despair. Lee Gun tells her that she has already fixed it, and he doesn't need any further treatment. Kyungju tells him that she knows he hasn't yet been able to meet his first love due to the trauma he's holding on to. She suggests that he meet his first love, as this would allow him to create good memories and finally let go of the painful ones. But Lee Gun counters, saying that what if meeting his first love only makes him sadder? What if, instead of good memories, their meeting creates even worse ones? Ignoring Kyungju's efforts to stop him, Lee Gun leaves. After he leaves, Kyungju goes through his reports again and learns about his accident. She finds his name familiar and then suddenly remembers seeing the same name on the suitcase tag. This means that Lee Gun is the very man with whom her luggage was exchanged. As soon as Kyungju realizes the truth, she rushes outside to search for Lee Gun, but she can't find him. Late at night, Lee Gun is drinking at a restaurant with his friend Go Boon. Go Boon keeps insisting that Lee Gun should go to the reunion and confess his love to the girl. He encourages him, saying, "What's the worst that could happen?" She might reject him, but at least he wouldn't have the regret of never expressing his feelings. Lee Gun tells Go Boon that he hates his life the way it is, and that's why he doesn't want to ruin the only good childhood memory he has. Instead, he asks Go Boon for a favor to find out the identity of the girl who saved his life 15 years ago. After leaving the restaurant, Lee Gun begins walking home while crying on his destiny. Suddenly, he receives a voice message from Kyungju. In the message, she tells him that she's the doctor whose luggage got exchanged with his. However, she didn't call just for that reason. She tells him that she doesn't know which memory is haunting him, but whenever he feels sad or just wants to talk to someone, he can come to her. Hearing this, Lee Gun feels touched and genuinely happy, and for the first time he smiles a little. Soon after, Kyungju receives a message from Lee Gun, where he informs her that he will return her luggage the next day, and this makes Kyungju little happy. The next day, Lee Gun takes Lee Shin to the hospital. Inside the van, Lee Shin notices the reunion invitation card and tells Lee Gun that, since he spent most of his life in Australia, he never really got the chance to make friends. That's why he envies Lee Gun. He then cheekily asks Lee Gun if he can also attend the reunion, saying that his presence will elevate Lee Gun's status. Annoyed, Lee Gun tells him to stop talking nonsense. Li Xin gets a little angry and then gets out of the van and warns Li Gun that, if he doesn't come back to pick him up on his one call, there will be consequences. After Li Xin leaves, Li Gun tries calling Kyung-ju, but she doesn't answer because she is speaking with the hospital director. The director stresses how important it is for her to do well in the upcoming presentation, as it's crucial to secure funding for their brain research. Without it, their research will be forced to stop. Kyung-ju reassures the director that she will handle everything. Meanwhile, Li Xin has arrived to see Dr. Han for his regular therapy session. While talking to him, he notices a file labeled Bad Memory Eraser. Surprised, Li Xin asks Dr. Han if it's really possible to erase someone's bad memories. The doctor, while taking the file, assures that he won't disclose the matter to anyone because it's top secret. He then tells Li Xin to head back for the day as he has an important meeting to attend. Outside, Kyung-ju checks her phone and sees missed calls from Li Gun. She tells him she'll meet him outside in 10 minutes. Meanwhile, a group of junior doctors carrying the lab mouse is going toward the auditorium, which is going to be used for the experiment. On the way, one of them accidentally drops the box, and the mouse escapes. Seeing this, all the doctors, including Kyung-ju, start chasing the mouse. As a result, Kyung-ju is unable to meet Li Gun as planned. Li Gun waits for her, but when she doesn't show up, he decides to head toward the hospital since he has to pick up Li Xin. Back at the hospital, just as Kyung-ju catches the mouse, the door suddenly opens and the mouse escapes again, running outside. It ends up under Li Gun's car. All the doctors are left in shock, holding their heads in despair. Li Gun steps out of his car, annoyed, saying he had just gotten the car washed. He asks Kyung-ju if the mouse belongs to her. Kyung-ju, holding the mouse in her hands, says it was an extremely valuable mouse. Li Gun offers to compensate her, which infuriates Kyung-ju. She starts yelling at him, saying that not everything can be compensated with money. She questions what kind of person he thinks he is. Kyung-ju, still angry, shouts at Li Gun, telling him that she wanted to know if he could hide his painful memories even at the cost of his life. She explains that the mouse was just as important to her as that and makes Li Gun feel worthless before storming off. Hearing her words, Li Gun starts crying. Li Xin, who had witnessed everything, sees Li Gun's emotional breakdown. During the presentation, Kyung-ju confidently tells the investors that their experiment was a success. Though the mouse sacrificed its life for humanity, she pleads with them to give her another chance, saying their research has advanced so much that they're now ready to test it on humans. Hearing this, Dr. Han asks what nonsense she's talking about. Kyung-ju replies that she knows someone who would be willing to volunteer for the experiment. Outside, Li Xin is signing autographs for his fans, while Li Gun holds an umbrella for him. However, Li Gun is consumed by the words Kyung-ju had said to him earlier. Lost in thought, he abruptly leaves Li Xin behind and walks away. Li Xin later visits the Big Picture agency and refuses to renew his contract with Hong Jun, stating that he cannot work with someone who doesn't respect his brother. At home, Li Gun ignores his parents and locks himself in his room. His mother had prepared his favorite meal and his family, including his brother, loves him deeply. However, since they don't openly show their affection, Li Gun has convinced himself that his parents don't care about him. Later that night, somehow, Li Gun falls into the water. Li Xin rescues him and rushes him to the hospital. Li Gun was unconscious and was bleeding from head. Seeing him in this state, Kyung-ju also got shocked, and everyone immediately takes him to the emergency ward. Dr. Han assures Li Xin that he won't let anything happen to Li Gun. Li Xin then pleads with Dr. Han in his office about something, and after some persuasion, Dr. Han agrees. During the surgery, not only are the doctors treating Li Gun's head injuries, but they are also erasing his bad memories, effectively using him as a human experiment. Kyung-ju reflects on her earlier words to Li Gun and wonders if her harsh comments pushed him to take such a drastic step, possibly jumping into the water on purpose. During the surgery, all of Li Gun's painful memories are erased. As a tear rolls down his face, Kyung-ju gently wipes it and notices his eyes flutter open. Li Gun looks at her and sees the same girl who once saved him from drowning. A smile spreads across his face. The next morning, when Kyung-ju goes to check on him, Li Gun isn't in his bed. Instead, he's sitting by the window and he is sipping coffee. Kyung-ju is surprised to see him in this state and asks him if he remembers anything about his past or who he is. Li Gun looks at her and replies, "Finally, after such a long time, I've met you, my first love." Hearing this, Kyung-ju is left in shock. At that moment, Li Gun's parents arrive and witness everything. They ask Li Gun if he recognizes them, but he doesn't respond and he simply stares at them. When Li Gun's checkup is completed, he seems a bit different. To everyone's surprise, during the MRI session he makes a mini heart gesture toward Kyung-ju, leaving her feeling embarrassed in front of everyone. Dr. Han, on the other hand, is overjoyed and exclaims that their experiment was a success. He suggests informing the director about this breakthrough. However, Kyung-ju stops him, saying they need to monitor Lee Gun for a few more days before reporting anything officially. Meanwhile, Lee Gun's family, including Lee Shin, Good Bong, and his parents, surround him in his room. They start asking him questions about his memories. Lee Gun's father, trying to gauge his condition, asks him if he remembers his name. Lee Gun's mother asks him to be quiet and then questions him about how he is and whether he recognizes her or not. In response, Lee Gun says they are sculptures. Hearing this, everyone is shocked and wonders what nonsense he's talking about. Then Lee Gun explains that his parents must be sculptors because only they could create someone as handsome as him. After this experiment, it seems like Lee Gun's entire personality has changed. Lee Gun's father asks him if he remembers getting hurt, to which Lee Gun starts examining his hands and feet, only to realize he doesn't have any injuries. This makes it clear to everyone that he doesn't remember his hand being injured. Suddenly, Lee Gun shouts loudly, demanding a mirror. Looking at his face in the mirror, he exclaims with relief, "Thank God nothing happened to my handsome face. Otherwise, what would I have done?" Then he notices a bandage on his head. His father explains that he got this injury due to an accident and assures him that it will heal soon. When Lee Gun asks about the accident, Lee Shin quickly says that he fell down the stairs. His parents remain silent and don't add anything. They ask Lee Gun what he remembers last, and he replies that he remembers winning the last World Cup but can't recall anything beyond that. Lee Shin tells him to rest, explaining that the doctor said it would take some time for him to recover after the surgery. Meanwhile, Dr. Han, who can't keep anything to himself, goes to the director and reveals everything. He tells the director that their experiment was successful and that they will observe Lee Gun for hundreds of days before presenting him to the investors. In the office, Kyung-ju begins checking all of Lee Gun's old files but doesn't find any mention of his first love. Her mind is in turmoil, wondering why Lee Gun is calling her his first love. She feels like she might go insane thinking about it. Determined to get answers, she grabs some files and goes to Lee Gun's room. However, when she sees him, her frustration only grows worse because Lee Gun is looking at her with an overly romantic gaze. Meanwhile, Lee Gun's parents confront Dr. Han, angrily questioning why he erased all of Lee Gun's memories when only his bad memories were supposed to be removed. Dr. Han defends himself, saying the experiment was successful and that this is proof Lee Gun's memories were mostly negative. He assures them there were no side effects and reminds them that Lee Gun's guardian gave consent for the procedure before it was performed. Lee Gun's parents, unable to comprehend the situation, turn to Lee Shin, who admits that he was the one who gave permission for the procedure. He explains that he just wanted his older brother to be happy. His parents reprimand him, saying he shouldn't have taken such a step because if something had gone wrong, it could have cost Lee Gun his life. Dr. Han interjects and he explains that Lee Gun's life must have become worse than hell, so he tried to jump in the water, and the procedure gave him a fresh start. He emphasizes that they should avoid doing anything that might trigger Lee Gun's bad memories. When Dr. Han asks if there is anyone connected to Lee Gun's good memories, his parents admit they don't know. Gu Bung also refuses to reveal anything. Meanwhile, Lee Gun becomes extremely energetic and loud. When a nurse approaches him to take his blood sample, he starts flirting with her. In fact, he begins flirting with all the nurses and female doctors in the hospital, causing a commotion. On the other hand, Kyung-ju is deeply troubled, wondering how to clear up Lee Gun's misunderstanding since she is not his first love. She's anxious about how to face Lee Gun, especially because her future career depends on the success of this experiment. If things continue this way, she doesn't know how she will manage to handle him. At that moment, Lee Gun pulls Kyung-ju into the laundry room and starts flirting with her, teasing that he knows she was looking for him. Kyung-ju, trying to clarify things, firmly tells him that she is his doctor and has no idea why he thinks she's his first love, but it's absolutely not true. To clear his misunderstanding, she even tells him that they have never met before, and that her only role is to treat him as his doctor. Lee Gun refuses to believe her and says she's just pretending to play hard to get. He insists that there's no way she could forget someone as handsome as him. Just then, they overhear another doctor outside talking to her boyfriend in an overly cringy manner, which makes Lee Gun burst into loud laughter. Kyung-ju quickly tries to shush him. Hearing noises from inside, the other doctor comes to inspect and tries to open the laundry room door, but it's locked as Lee Gun had locked it from inside. Kyung-ju, growing more anxious, tells Lee Gun to let her out, but Lee Gun jokes that if they step out together, everyone will tease them for being on a secret date. However, Kyung-ju insists on leaving, and her eyes fall on Lee Gun's hand holding the door. She notices that he is using his left hand instead of his right. This observation makes her realize that Lee Gun still seems hesitant to use his right hand, possibly because of the lingering fear or pain. When Kyung-ju asks why he isn't using his right hand, Lee Gun casually replies, "Because my left hand is enough." Meanwhile, outside the room, not just the lady doctor but also Dr. Tae-yi starts trying to open the door. Hearing Dr. Tae-yi's voice, Kyung-ju becomes extremely nervous because she has a crush on him and dreams of dating him. When Dr. Tae-yi instructs the lady doctor to fetch the keys to open the door, Kyung-ju panics even more. In desperation, she tells Lee Gun to hide under the pile of clothes in the room, pleading with him to do it for the sake of his supposed first love. However, Lee Gun refuses, saying there's no way he would hide his handsome face in such dirty clothes. Yes, Lee Gun loves Kyung-ju, but above all, he loves himself the most and would never subject himself to germs in such dirty conditions. Just as Dr. Tae-yi calls the security guard to open the door, Kyung-ju steps out of the room, pretending to be on a phone call. She casually asks everyone what's happening, diverting their attention, and then locks Lee Gun inside the room. The crowd disperses, unaware of what just happened. Inside, Lee Gun finally sticks his head out of a laundry bag. The smell of the dirty clothes drives him crazy, leaving him irritated and frustrated. A while later, Lee Gun's mother arrives at the hospital reception, worried and informing the staff that she can't find Lee Gun. This creates panic among the nurses and other staff. Kyung-ju, too, receives a message on her phone saying that Lee Gun has escaped from the hospital. Shocked and panicked, she wonders where he could have gone. But Lee Gun returns home, immerses himself in a bathtub, and begins thinking about his past tennis matches. However, he can't recall whether he won his last match or not. He wanted to know everything, but he couldn't remember it at all. After his bath, he steps out and starts wearing Lee Shin's clothes. Shortly afterward, Lee Shin comes home and looks for Lee Gun in his room. When he doesn't find him there, he checks his own room, only to find Lee Gun sitting there. Lee Gun is staring at a tennis racket lying in the room, and tears start rolling down his face. He feels utterly confused and asks himself why he's feeling this way. When Lee Shin enters the room, he casually tries to strike up a conversation. Lee Gun, asserting his authority as the elder brother, tells Lee Shin to speak to him with more respect. While looking around, Lee Gun comments that it doesn't feel like this room belongs to him. Lee Shin, trying to cover up, hides his personal photos and insists that this is indeed Lee Gun's room. At that moment, their parents arrive home, carrying Kyung-ju's suitcase with them. It was the same suitcase that he went to exchange with Kyung-ju. As soon as Lee Gun arrives home, everyone notices him wearing Lee Shin's colorful clothes, looking absolutely adorable. His mother is about to say something about why he's wearing Lee Shin's clothes, but his father interrupts her and tells Lee Gun that he shouldn't have left the hospital without informing anyone. Just then, Lee Shin also arrives, and Lee Gun explains that he thought returning home might bring back his memories, but nothing of that sort happened. Looking at the stairs, he says he's certain he didn't fall from them. He feels as though his accident happened when he fell into the Han River. Hearing this, both his father and Lee Shin immediately tell him that's absolutely not true. Lee Gun sits with everyone and starts asking questions, saying he vaguely remembers playing tennis until 2007, but now he wants to know what he currently does or what his status is. His mother tells him that he stopped playing tennis and retired after graduating. She knows that they didn't want to remind him of painful memories, so they told him he needed to learn how to run a sports agency. He wanted to start his own agency, so he joined one and now works as Lee Shin's manager. To convince him, they even hand him a business card. Just then, his father opens the suitcase, and upon seeing a girl's clothing inside, he is visibly shocked. He shows it to his wife, who is equally stunned. Lee Shin is also extremely surprised but refrains from asking anything, fearing it might trigger some unpleasant memories for Lee Gun. Finally, Lee Gun's personality had completely transformed. He had become much more talkative and open compared to before. Lee Gun goes downstairs, picks up a car, and drives off happily in style. Seeing him so cheerful, his family becomes overjoyed because they've never seen Lee Gun this happy before. At the same day at the hospital, Kyung-ju tells Dr. Han that due to some flaw in the experiment, Lee Gun now believes she's his first love. She insists they should clear up this misunderstanding, tell Lee Gun the truth, and find a new subject for the research. However, Dr. Han argues that the ethics committee might ban them from conducting further human research if they keep making such changes. He explains that every treatment has side effects, and if Lee Gun sees Kyung-ju as his first love, there's nothing wrong with that, and at least he's happy. While they are talking, Lee Gun arrives at Dr. Han's office and is about to open the door when a nurse takes him away. Inside again, Dr. Han, who has known Lee Gun for the past 10 years, mentions that he has never seen him this happy before. He also requests Kyung-ju to let things remain as they are. On the other hand, the nurse then changes Lee Gun's bandages. After the office is over, Kyung-ju is still in the hospital when her mother calls her, complaining about why she hasn't come home yet. Kyung-ju explains that she's busy earning money for them. However, her mother starts pressuring her again to date someone. Frustrated, Kyung-ju lies to her mother saying she is already dating someone. Her mother, in turn, begins giving her unsolicited advice about seduction, including which lingerie to wear to make her chest appear larger. Embarrassed, Kyung-ju tells her mother to hang up. Just then, Kyung-ju saw and was shocked to see Lee Gun standing there. She immediately asks him how much of her conversation he overheard. Smiling, Lee Gun replies that he heard everything and jokingly asks why she was speaking to her mother-in-law like that. Irritated, Kyungju tells him to stop talking nonsense, as she doesn't even know him well. Lee Gun tells her that the nurse already informed him about how much care Kyungju took of him while he was unconscious. He then asks her why she did so much for him if she truly isn't his first love. He also knows Dr. Han is his actual doctor, not her. Lee Gun jokes that if he had a girlfriend, she would definitely scratch Kyungju's face for taking such good care of him, handing her milk. He teases her again, but Kyungju curtly tells him to leave it on the table. Frustrated by her cold attitude, Lee Gun asks why she's behaving so rudely toward him. The next day, Lee Shin and Se-Yan are shooting a commercial. Afterward, Se-Yan wants to ask Lee Shin about Lee Gun, but before she can, Lee Shin notices Hong Jun nearby and leaves immediately. He doesn't want to discuss renewing their contract. Once Lee Shin leaves, Se-Yan approaches Hong Jun and inquires about Lee Gun. Hong Jun reveals that Lee Gun is unwell and is in the hospital. Se-Yan goes to the hospital to see him, but the nurse stops her, saying no one is allowed to meet Lee Gun. Just then, Lee Gun arrives and asks her if they know each other. They step outside to talk, and seeing Lee Gun so happy, Se-Yan remarks that he has changed a lot and now seems like her type. Lee Gun playfully responds that he is everyone's type. At that moment, some of Se-Yan's fans approached her for autographs. After signing them, she returns to Lee Gun and shares that she started playing tennis because of him. She explains that he was a world champion, but after retiring, he began working as Lee Shin's manager. She then mentions how sad she felt when she learned he had lost his medal. Hearing this, Lee Gun becomes deep in thought, wondering where his medal might have gone if he truly won the World Cup. The strain causes Lee Gun to suddenly feel a sharp pain in his head, and he collapses outside the hospital, screaming in agony. Kang Yeon-ju also receives a call informing her that Lee Gun has lost consciousness. She rushes to the hospital. Later, Go Bong arrives at the hospital and asks Kyungju about Lee Gun. When Kyungju says she doesn't know him, Go Bong explains that he is Lee Gun's friend and that Lee Gun's mother had sent him to check on him. He admits the current situation is partly his fault. Go Bong reveals that he had insisted Lee Gun attend their reunion, and it was that same night that Lee Gun jumped into the Han River. Kyungju was shocked to hear this and she pressed him for details about that night. Go Bong explains that at the reunion, Lee Gun saw his first love. He discovered his missing medal, which was in her possession. Realizing this, Lee Gun noticed the girl walking away and ran after her. To Lee Gun, she was the only source of happiness left in his life because she was the person who had once saved him. But when Lee Gun followed her to the parking lot, he saw his first love kissing someone else. To his utter shock, the man she was kissing was none other than Lee Shin. That same night, Lee Gun called Go Bong, crying uncontrollably. He told him that everything was over because the girl he had been waiting for all these years was with someone else, and not just anyone, but Lee Shin. Hearing this, even Kyungju felt immense pity for Lee Gun. When Kyungju later entered Lee Gun's hospital room, she found his mother sitting by his unconscious body. Seeing Kyungju, his mother said, "Isn't it strange? My son is lying here in such a condition, and yet not a single tear has fallen from my eyes." She then added, "You must think I'm his stepmother, don't you?" But when I first found out that Lee Gun could never play tennis again, I cried my heart out that day. I'm also an athlete, and that's why I promised myself that day I'd never cry again. Instead, I decided to make my children as strong as possible. Maybe that's why I've become a mother who seems cold and distant, but it's not because I don't love him. Lee Gun's mother then started recalling the day he returned home after the reunion. She had told him that his grandmother had sent some food for him, and Lee Gun started eating it. When she served Lee Shin the food their grandmother had sent, Lee Gun grabbed it from him. He kept doing this repeatedly, and his mother finally scolded him, asking why he was behaving that way. She said, "What difference will it make if Lee Shin eats a little? Why are you acting like this with his mouth full?" Lee Gun replied, "Grandmother sent it for me, so I won't share it." This made his mother furious, and she lashed out at him, saying, "Everything you have today, the plate you eat from, the house you live in, is all because of Lee Shin. You're surviving off his scraps." Lee Shin tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. Hearing this, Lee Gun finally snapped. He yelled at his mother, saying, "I've always been alone. First, you left me and went to Australia, and since then, you've never cared about me. You didn't come to my graduation ceremony or even my exams. Forget those, you never even cared about my birthdays. You've always thought only about Lee Shin and given him all the attention." He then continued, "At school, I was bullied by other kids, but I never said a word to anyone. Not because he couldn't say anything to them, but because he didn't act only to avoid damaging Lee Shin's reputation. Even his breathing was compared to Lee Shin. While leaving, he says that he wishes he hadn't saved Lee Shin that day because then he wouldn't be in this situation now. But at least now he knows that his parents are not his but only Lee Shin's parents, and he is just a burden on them." Remembering this, his mom tells Kyungju that hearing such words from Lee Gun that day made her realize that, in trying to protect one's son, They had ruined the life of the other. Crying profusely, she says that now that she has a chance to be Lee Gun's mother, she will not waste it and will give him all the love she never gave before. Hearing all of this, Kyungju feels even worse for Lee Gun. When Lee Gun regains consciousness and sees the tennis racket in his room, he takes it and goes to the hospital playground. While thinking about his current situation, he begins to cry. Kyungju notices him, and when Lee Gun sees her as well, he wipes his tears and says that the wind made his eyes water. Not able to hold back, Kyungju tells him that he doesn't need to hide anything from her. Lee Gun can lean on her and share what's troubling him. Lee Gun tells her that it has been a long time since he played tennis, and that's why he feels a great emptiness in his heart. But he still doesn't understand why he stopped playing tennis. Just then, a ball comes from the automatic ball machine, and Lee Gun blocks it instinctively with his right hand. Seeing this, Kyungju can't believe it. Lee Gun, who had spent his entire life trying to forget this pain, now seems to have overcome it. Seeing this, Kyungju decides in her heart that she will help Lee Gun. She tells him that he doesn't need to fill any hollow or make any excuses because she is his first love. Hearing this, Lee Gun can't contain his happiness. That same night, police officers arrive to meet Lee Shin, which makes him extremely anxious. From the next day, Lee Shin starts acting childishly in front of Kyungju, sometimes bringing flowers, sometimes coffee, and sometimes performing silly antics in front of all her doctors. Seeing this, Kyungju feels deeply embarrassed and confused about what to do. Despite these antics, Kyungju tells Dr. Han that she is ready to become Lee Gun's first love, not because he is her subject, but because she genuinely wants to see Lee Gun happy now. Hearing this, Dr. Han can't contain his joy and tells Kyungju that she has made the right decision. Kyungju was now told to focus solely on Lee Gun, leaving everything else behind. After this, when they both go to meet Lee Gun, they see that he is sitting there with his parents. Lee Gun then tells his parents that Kyungju is his first love. Hearing this, Kyungju feels like she's about to faint. What is this man even trying to do? At that moment, his parents call Kyungju over and start asking questions about her. But due to the shock, she can't say anything. When Dr. Han nudges her, she blurts out everything in one breath that she is a psychiatrist, a 28-year-old single woman, and that she lives with her nephew and mother. Lee Gun's parents begin to ask even more questions, like how they met. Kyungju feels like she's trapped because she has no idea how to answer this. Then Lee Gun, blushing, says that they first met when he was 13 years old, and Kyungju saved his life when he was drowning. Hearing this, not only does Kyungju freeze in shock, but Lee Gun's parents are equally stunned. They repeatedly thank Kyungju for saving his life. Once outside, Kyungju begins cursing herself, wondering why she agreed to this drama in the first place. She starts hitting her head and resolves to go tell Lee Gun the truth about everything. Just then, she sees Lee Gun approaching her. He was holding a flower and dressed in stunning clothes. Seeing this, Kyungju thinks that he's about to propose to her. Before Lee Gun can say anything, Kyungju quickly speaks up, saying that she is already dating someone. Hearing this, Lee Gun responds that she is lying because she spends all her time in the hospital. So how could she possibly be dating someone? He adds that the hospital nurses have also said that she is single and that ever since he came to the hospital, she has only been taking care of him. Kyungju tells Lee Gun to stop talking nonsense and says that nothing like what he's saying is true. She tells him that just because he came back after so many years doesn't mean she waited for him. She added that yes, she is his first love, now she doesn't love him. She also adds that she has a secret boyfriend in the hospital whom she is secretly dating and that they don't want anyone to know about it yet. That's why she hasn't told anyone that she is in a relationship. Just then, Dr. Tae-yi arrives and he greets her. Kyungju sees this opportunity and greets him as if he is her partner. Seeing this, Lee Gun believes that Kyungju is dating Dr. Tae-yi. Later, Lee Gun is exercising in the hospital gym, sitting with a sulky face. Go Bong arrives and asks him what's wrong. Lee Gun tells him that he has found his first love, but along with her, he has also found her boyfriend. Hearing this, Go Bong says, but isn't her boyfriend Lee Shin as well? Frustrated, Lee Gun snaps and says, what nonsense are you talking about? He's just a doctor. This confuses Go Bong, because still he thought Lee Gun was talking about his real first love, the one he saw with Lee Shin. Go Bong tells him to forget about his first love because she hangs around with too many guys. At that moment, Lee Gun sees Kyungju with Tae-yi and she was smiling while talking to him and his blood starts boiling. Go Bong asks if he's jealous, to which Lee Gun irritably replies that he isn't jealous of that monkey-faced guy at all, but indeed he was jealous. On the same day, Lee Shin meets with the police regarding Lee Gun's case. Lee Shin explains his brother's condition to them, saying that Lee Gun doesn't remember anything and that they should talk to him directly about the case. The inspector asks how Lee Shin knew that his brother had fallen into the water. Lee Shin explains that there had been a small fight in their family that day. Lee Gun had gone to the edge of the Han River and he was crying. Lee Shin had planned to talk to him after some time and he started walking away. But then he heard the sound of something falling into the water, so he rushed to save his brother, pulled him out, and performed CPR. However, Lee Gun had suffered a head injury, so they took him to the hospital. The police find the timing a bit odd and question how Lee Shin managed to rescue Lee Gun from under the bridge so quickly. It seemed almost impossible unless someone had jumped in from above. Still, they praise Lee Shin for saving his brother and let him go. At that moment, Hong Jun tells the police that Lee Shin is set to represent their country next month, so they should avoid troubling him further. Handing them a business card, Hong Jun tells them to contact him directly if they need any further information. Outside, Lee Shin tells Hong Jun that no matter how hard he tries, he will not renew the contract with him. Hong Jun, subtly threatening him, says that rumors have a way of spreading internally, and if people find out that Lee Gun's incident was somehow Lee Shin's fault, everyone will blame Lee Shin for it. At the hospital, Kyung-ju is seen talking to Dr. Tae-yi about Lee Gun, because this news spreads throughout the entire hospital, and soon everyone believes that Kyung-ju is Lee Gun's first love. But Kyung-ju tells Tae-yi that there is nothing like that, and she only said it to save him. Hearing this, Tae-yi places his hand on her shoulder to reassure her that it's okay. At that moment, Tae-yi notices the Eiffel Tower keyring in Kyung-ju's hand, the same one he had given her, and the two of them start talking happily. All of this is being watched by Lee Gun, who becomes irritated and throws a slipper at Tae-yi. Tae-yi doesn't notice anything, but Kyung-ju gets extremely annoyed, wondering what this man thinks of himself. Later, in the cafeteria, Tae-yi and Kyung-ju are having lunch together while Lee Gun is sitting nearby. He ordered a huge amount of food from outside in hopes that Kyung-ju would notice and join him for lunch. However, his plan backfires when, instead of Kyung-ju, Tae-yi ends up joining him. Seeing this, Kyung-ju gets even angrier because she had planned to have lunch with her crush, but Lee Gun ruined it. She decides to leave, but just then, a man accidentally bumps into her, causing her food to spill on her clothes. Lee Gun quickly gets up and starts cleaning her clothes, but Kyung-ju tells him she can clean it herself. At that moment, Tae-yi receives an emergency call and leaves. Lee Gun once again tries to explain to Kyung-ju that Tae-yi doesn't really care about her, whereas he values her so much. Still, Kyung-ju firmly tells him that he needs to understand that she likes someone else and will never love him. Back in her cabin, Kyung-ju starts wondering how long she'll have to keep pretending that she was the one who saved Lee Gun. Then, suddenly, a thought strikes her that if Lee Gun was saved while drowning in his childhood hood, it means he must be afraid of water. So why did he jump into the water in the first place? At the tennis court, Lee Shin is practicing hard on his mother's orders. His father tells him to take some rest and that they shouldn't put so much stress on Lee Shin. At that moment, Hong Jun enters with a bunch of tennis balls and informs his parents that he has sorted everything out with the police, so they don't need to worry at all. At that moment, Lee Shin starts signing autographs on all the tennis balls. Seeing this, his mom looks at Hong Jun and asks why he did this. Lee Shin already knew that Hong Jun could do anything, so he tells his mom that he made this decision himself and that he will also visit Go Bong's school to meet the kids. His father was already aware of this, so after Hong Jun leaves, his mom gets very angry with his father. However, at Lee Shin's insistence, she finally agrees. The next day at the elementary school, Go Bong tells his students that the famous tennis player Lee Shin is coming to meet them today. All the children start eagerly waiting for him. But the drama of Lee Gun is continuing, and when he arrives at the agency, he steps out of his car in full style, without even bothering to park it properly. As soon as he reaches the office, he flirts with the girl who opens the door for him. Entering the office, he declares to everyone that now that he's here, he'll fix everything. He then barges into Hong Jun's office, where Hong Jun is in the middle of a meeting. Seeing him, Hong Jun questions if he's lost his mind. Lee Gun then sat down at the meeting table and told him that he is back since the company was missing him. Hong Jun thought to herself why he's talking such nonsense. Hong Jun is also quite surprised by Lee Gun's over-the-top personality. With full attitude, Lee Gun declares that he is ready to offer his talent to this agency. While looking through Sai Yan's documents, he asks if this girl is playing well. Hong Jun seizes the opportunity and tells Lee Gun that if he brings Sai Yan back to their agency, he will give Lee Gun a proper role as a manager at their agency. Lee Gun confidently assures him that he'll make it happen, but as he leaves the office, he thinks to himself that for some reason, he really doesn't like this man. Back at the hospital, when the nurse enters Lee Gun's room and doesn't find him there, she assumes that he has run away from the hospital once again. Just then, Lee Gun comes out of the washroom and tells the nurse that she's suspecting him for no reason since he's been here the entire time and hasn't run away from the hospital. While walking with the nurse, he asks her if Tae-yi has a girlfriend. The nurse asked him why he was asking such questions. Is he interested in him? Lee Gun told her that he is, but in a different way. The nurse tells him that she doesn't know about that. However, Lee Gun notices that the nurse has the same keyring that Kyung-ju had. Curious, he asks her about it. The nurse explains that Tae-yi is extremely stingy and brought the same Eiffel Tower keyrings for everyone from Paris. So if he did have a girlfriend, she wouldn't last long anyway. At that moment, Tae-yi arrives and Lee Gun teases him before walking away. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, Kyung-ju is speaking with Dr. Han, who has gone on a business trip. He tells her that one of his patients will be arriving today, and she assures him that she'll look after it. Just then, a car speeds past Kyung-ju, and she yells at the driver, saying that driving so fast in a hospital area is not allowed. Lee Shin gets out of the car and starts running ahead, but a ball from his bag rolls over to Kyung-ju. He asks for the ball back, as he's in a hurry to get into the hospital. Kyung-ju throws the ball at him, but as he tries to catch it, more balls spill out of his bag. In an attempt to stop them, Kyung-ju ends up lying on the road, managing to block several balls. At that moment, other doctors arrive at the scene, including Tae-yi, which leaves Kyung-ju feeling extremely embarrassed. To save herself, she tells everyone that she tripped over a ball and fell. Everyone helps her pick up the balls, but amidst the chaos, her Eiffel Tower keyring accidentally falls into Lee Shin's bag. At the elementary school, Go Bong repeatedly calls Lee Shin, asking when he will arrive, but Lee Shin doesn't answer. To calm the children down, Go Bong tells them that Lee Shin will arrive in half an hour so that they'll stay patient. Back at the hospital, Lee Shin comes to see a doctor, but instead of Dr. Han, he finds Kyung-ju. With a smile, he gives her an energy drink, and pleads with her to let him go since he has something extremely important to do today. However, Kyung-ju doesn't allow him to leave. Lee Shin sat in front of her, and he started arranging the energy drinks on the table in perfect order because disorganized things bother him greatly. Kyung-ju notices this and tells him that he probably has OCD and explains that it's a common problem. She adds that since it developed over time and isn't genetic, he can work on fixing it if he wants to. Lee Shin, looking a little sad, responds that it doesn't matter what he wants since he's always been doing what others expect him to do. Kyung-ju says that this is his life and what he wants is the most important thing. Hearing someone say this for the first time, Lee Shin feels really good. Smiling, he asks Kyung-ju if he can leave early today because he has to go somewhere very important. Saying this, he leaves. At night, when all the doctors are heading home, Lee Gun sees Tae-yi, who is clinging to another girl. Seeing this, Lee Gun gets extremely angry, thinking that Tae-yi is betraying his Kyung-ju. He starts imagining Kyung-ju, assuming she is still sitting in her cabin, working through the night. After the hospital visit, Lee Shin rushes to an elementary school, but it's already late, and all the children have already gone home. When Lee Gun sees Kyung-ju, she has fallen asleep sitting in her chair. Seeing her like this, Lee Gun approaches her. Just as Kyung-ju's head is about to hit the table, Lee Gun puts his hand forward to stop it. Lee Gun finds himself very close to her and moves forward as if to kiss her but quickly restrains himself. He quietly says why she doesn't love him and why her lips are so soft. However, he keeps stopping himself from getting closer to her. At that moment, Lee Gun starts reading Kyung-ju's notes, where something about a bad memory eraser was written. Just as he tries to read it further, Kyung-ju wakes up. Both of them, realizing how close they are to each other, quickly move apart. Kyung-ju asks why he was trying to read her notes and how much he managed to read. Lee Gun says her handwriting is so bad that he couldn't understand anything. Hearing this, Kyung-ju breathes a sigh of relief and asks him why he came there. Lee Gun replies that he came just to check on her, but adds that she was sleeping so deeply that if someone had kissed her, she wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. Hearing this, Kyung-ju asks if he took advantage of her. Lee Gun teasingly asks if she wants him to. Kyung-ju tells him to keep quiet, but when Lee Gun invites her to have dinner with him, she refuses. She says she has already eaten dinner, but Lee Gun calls her a liar. Kyung-ju said yes, she is lying because she doesn't want to spend time with Lee Gun and definitely not want to have the dinner. Lee Gun then says he wants to use his wish coupon.